Okay, now another set of tips and tricks that may help you out. Many a times we do end up buying the same product from the same brand. So you will, if you go and you buy, let's say, a geometry box, you will have a scale, a protractor, set squares, everything from the same brand. But many a times over a period of time, you end up losing certain equipment, and then you need to buy another one. In that, you may notice that when you look at the units, so this one has all the centimeters on this side, and similarly this one has all the centimeters on this side. Now many a times you will notice that if you, let me put a white paper in the background so it might be a little easier for you to see. When I place these two together and I match, let's say, the 14 centimeter mark and the 16 centimeter mark, you will notice that be it 12, 18, 11, 19, 10, 20, 9, 21, 8, 22, 7, 23, or similarly on this side, all the way from 129, 228, 327, 426, and so on and so forth. They are all matching, so there is no difference. This is from a different brand, and obviously this is from a different brand. So as long as your units are correct, you are good to go. But it may happen that sometimes there is a small difference between this and that. If that happens, you will have to find scales that may help you. One more way, in terms of, you may have a question as to how do I figure out which of these is correct. So another advantage that you have, if you have a cutting mat, each of these squares forms 1 centimeter. So it's a 1 square centimeter, which means if I place this at 15, you will notice that it is exactly at 16. So in that case, what you can do is that if you have one of these, you can simply place your scale to it as well as your other scale to it, in case you think that there is some difference. If there is none, then you are good to go. So this is one tip that could work in your favor, because it is possible that, let's say, you use a scale which is slightly different and your teacher uses a scale that is slightly different, or vice versa. If there is a teacher who's watching this, then your equipment may be different from your students. So just see to it that when you're assessing them, that is something that you keep in mind. These are all different concerns that students can have. I follow, let's say, a high precision concept, so I work with that with my students. But it is also allowed by IGCSE that if there is a slight difference, you will give them the benefit of the doubt. Moving forward, I'm not buying this geometry set. It's too expensive. Plus I don't need one. However, just to give you an idea, one option is that you have a compass and you put a pencil to it. The pencil over a period of time will lose its sharpness and you will have to sharpen it. The other option is that you buy this set, and in this you will notice that while you do have this compass, they provide you with a mechanical pencil that can be used as an attachment over here. Advantage of the mechanical pencil: your lead will always remain uniform and constant. The thickness will remain the same. In case you do need to sharpen it, you just have to click it once so that you get a little extra out, and then you can use this sandpaper to just sharpen that edge a little. Please use 2B or HB as your the graphite, so that it makes life a little easier, because the darker it is means the faster it will get over, the harder it is means it's going to probably scratch the paper. So have that lead in here, and that helps you carry it forward. Of course, having an eraser also helps. However, don't use an eraser like this. It would be best if you can get one of these. The brand doesn't really matter, but as long as it's a non-dust eraser, it'll help you a lot. So get an eraser for that. One more thing that I wanted to share was the compass. So if you recall, I had mentioned previously that this tip of the compass is important. Now in this one, you will see that it is sharp, but it doesn't really lock on. So it may work on paper for a little while, but if the base of the paper is really hard, then while this holds on to paper on this, it may not do so on, let's say, sun mica, which is what a lot of people put on the school tables. Whereas if I compare the same thing to my compass, you can see the difference in the nib. So if you can have a compass with a nib similar to the one on the left hand side, then life becomes a lot easier for the students, or get them your A3 sized pine drawing boards. So either of those options work for you. Moving forward, IGCSE also says that you can use templates. One template that you may see in the question paper could be something like this. This is the isometric grid that sometimes has been shared by the board in different papers. The way it works is, okay, I'll show you with a sketch pen. This is your baseline. So if this is the ground, let's say, each of these angles that are being formed follow your 30-degree mark. So if this is 30 degree and that is 30 degree, then what you're remaining with is obviously 120. So the obtuse angle is 120. Starting acute angles are going to be 30. Beyond that, any vertical line that you have to start will obviously be at 90. However, let's say you have reached over here and you want to go to a vertical degree, you just have to follow the grid, or keep in mind that all obtuse angles are going to be 120. From here, if I go again in that direction, that forms an obtuse angle. If I go in this direction, it forms an acute angle. So an acute angle is always going to be 60 degree. Obtuse angle is always going to be 120 degrees. Starting is the only time when you will end up using 30 degrees as well as your 90-degree vertical. So as long as you remember the degrees, working becomes easy. Then you don't even need this isometric grid. Sometimes students find it difficult if I give you a blank page to start off. You need to still be able to create a straight line, which is a baseline, put the protractor from a point, go 30 degrees in either direction. So sometimes having a grid can help you better with your practice, but over a period of time, you will have to let this go and work with a blank sheet. So it's always a good idea that you start with a blank sheet so that it's easier for you to continue the process. Having said that, another thing that they say is that you can use templates like this, which can allow you to get a circle. However, the challenge with this is, let's say you have got a drawing. Now, if the drawing has, okay, this is just me eyeballing a 90 degree for you, but when you're actually making a product, make sure that you don't. And there is another one where you have found, let's say, that as a point. Now, for something like this, the advantage is that what I've done is I've made a cutout in this just to show you how the actual one would look. Another thing that we can do here is at that point where you see the larger line as well as over here, we will mark it slightly dark so that even if I'm keeping the paper further away from you, you can still see what I'm about to do. So let's say these are your 4 lines. Yeah, you can see the 4 of them. Now, if I make the line this long, then obviously for me to place it along the lines or the crosshair that I've made becomes a lot easier. And this way I can find the center and use this template to recreate a shape. So that's the circle that I can create. However, if I have something like this, you can't really put this to figure out whether you're actually in the center or if that crosshair is in the center actually or not. In fact, it may be completely off. So in cases like this, it becomes difficult to use a template. In cases like that, it is obviously easier. but this means that you will always have to be mindful that you make it this long. If you start from a compass, or if you, let's say, have a corner made for yourself and you want to convert this into a fillet or a radius or a curved edge, let's say something like that, that means that from a scale you will have to measure the radius. You will have to measure the radius on this side as well. Similarly, wherever the back wall is on either side, you will match this over here, you will match this over there, how you end up intersecting it and finding that point. Now, once you have found that point, again, if this is long enough, then you may be able to use it, but as you can see over here, it's smaller. So then that means you have to carry a lot of these templates to figure out what is the size that you need to make, which can be a disadvantage. So rather than you using a circular template, best option is to use a compass. It's much faster, it's more precise, and it's just more fun to use. Moving forward from templates is another thing which is called different types of cutters. So you have a normal paper cutter, which looks like this. Always make sure that that tip of yours is triangular and hasn't gone blunt, because over a period of time, as you keep using it, that tip is going to go blunt. So one option is to have a cutter like this. The other option is to have a cutter like this. This is called an X-Acto knife. Okay, it gives you a very clean finish over here. It's narrower, the angle is much less as compared to this. So when I'm holding on to this on, let's say, a piece of paper, so if say this is the piece of paper, I have to ensure that I am down here so that I can cut, but many people can choose to cut it like that too. So this doesn't really give you an understanding of at what angle you need to put. However, if you look at this starts from here. So all you need to do is just lift it slightly and go for it. So this gives you a much cleaner finish. The cutout of the template will also be a lot easier to cut with X-Acto knives. Also remember the name, because they do ask in the graphic products paper what can be used to cut precise shapes for paper or for styrofoam. So this is the tool that you will use. You can choose to use this, but this is supposed to be the better one.